So I'm gonna hit record, and basically this is AWC TV episode 4. Instead of interviewing wrestlers, we thought we'd go back to the beginning of Arlington Wrestling and Arlington Wrestling Club. We've got Coach Pagan, who's the founder of Arlington Wrestling Club, and we thought we'd interview you and get your perspective of what it was like starting Arlington Wrestling Club just a few years ago. So first off, everybody, and I don't know that everybody really knows. Oh wait, we got a special guest dropping in here. You might want to go to gallery view for this.
Okay, I don't know how to do that, but as long as you can see him, I guess.
Oh, he doesn't have audio yet.
Here we go.
Coach.
You got me now?
I got you.
Hey, Chris.
Ah, look at that guy.
Hey, Pagan. I didn't expect to see you. Good to see you.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. So we thought we'd surprise you guys by bringing the two founders of Arlington Wrestling and Arlington Wrestling Club together to get your feedback on what was going through your minds, what was your plan, what was your strategy, what was your approach back in the day when Coach Cordero started Arlington Wrestling, and just a few short years later, Coach Pagan started the Arlington Wrestling Club. So appreciate you guys kind of joining us and answering some questions for us. So Coach Cordero, we'll probably ask, I'll start with you first. So what was it like when you opened Arlington Wrestling at the high school?
To start it?
Yep.
That was so remember the Arlington High School began with one grade at a time, and they opened up one wing of the school at a time. So we didn't have anything. And of course, football and basketball pretty much cornered the market in Arlington, and Arlington being small as it was, trying to get, donations and whatnot. So at one point we were working outside with milk crates and filled with bricks and old tires that I had from my old little Civic that I changed. So they weren't even big, heavy tires either. So,
wow.
But they were, a bunch of young 14-year-olds. So it was a lot for them most of the time.
That was that 2004?
That was 2004, right.
2004, okay. Now, Coach Pagan, when did you come on board? Do you start out as assistant?
I came on board, I guess the fall of, I guess it was the fall of 2007, the winter of 2008, the beginning of 2008. So that's 2008, 2007, 2008 season. It was their first graduating class.
Okay. So what are some of the fun memories you guys have from coaching at the high school?
From that season or just in general?
Just in general.
Yeah, because there's lots all around, but that season in particular, I mean, that was one heck of a season. I'd gotten into the guys at the end of their freshman year and the possibilities of how you can work and develop it. And so we set little goals like, okay, next year, and they were pretty lofty goals. A bunch of sophomores, because as freshmen, they made the region tournament as freshmen. But as sophomores, to actually try to do well in the district, maybe even win the district. As juniors, win the regions, and that way we can actually do something to state our senior year. And so we were about a year off our goal because those guys had bought in, and they were so many of them had been part of that first group, and they bought in heavy. And so that senior year, the boys made a lot of decisions themselves, and that was fun to see how they came together. I think one of the more dynamic parts was a little bit after Christmas, everybody had been in their weight classes, and they all of a sudden just all together, they'd gone together, and I didn't know they were doing this, and just all decided, look, we're going to drop a weight class, everybody. That'll open up a hole. We can stick Cody here. We can, do this, and it worked. It was perfect.
Great.
Yeah, one of the things that struck me when I first came on board with the program as an assistant coach that first year was how I thought there was it was a tight-knit group of seniors, more so than I typically have seen in a class. And I guess it's because of their experience as freshmen, being the only freshman class, and I think that kind of tends to bind you more tightly as a group. You identify more.
Yeah.
Class. So yeah, that was pretty cool. how that group stuck together.
So went from so as freshmen, they were competing with varsity from all the other schools.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think we had some pretty good moments. We actually had some wins as freshmen, but I always thought the funniest one was we were invited to Ridgeway High School in Ron Ridgeway time. You know, they're a pretty tough team, and he had it had to be at least 8 seniors. Most of them are 18. One of them had his kid in the audience. I mean, our parents were freaking out. You know, these grown men and all our little freshmen, and it was a whooping, to say the least. Not the worst we'd ever gotten, but it sure was a big one.
Wow.
Seeing them walk out in the middle of the, our 3 captains and then their 8 seniors. Yeah, there was a big disparity.
So, I mean, when you start a team like that, what do you say to those guys? What was going through your mind, and what you had to talk to, have that conversation with?
Well, I guess we just started with never having any excuses about anything. So, that one of the best parts about wrestling is that you're competing against somebody your size. And so whatever your experience and your strength and your dedication to it is what can carry you. And I told them there was plenty of guys that as freshmen had been region champs and or had done very good, very well within that first year. I was like, there's no reason to sell yourself short, lift that, go after a big goal early on. There, it gives you something to chase. You don't settle for mediocrity that way.
Tough lesson. So, Coach Pagan, you joined when those freshmen were seniors. How long after that did you guys come up with the club or start the club?
Well, I think
That was mostly Pagan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had it in mind very shortly after joining the program and seeing where everybody was in their development. And it was clear to me at that point that was going to be the way to go. I just needed to kind of pitch it the right way to Israel, and I didn't know how he was going to. I mean, I couldn't imagine somebody wouldn't want a program like that. It's a matter of what it was going to take to get it organized and get it off the ground. And so I think we talked at the in Clarksville during state duels. There was a break where we actually stood together and just kind of decided that I said basically, look, this is what I'm willing to do for you. I think I can do better in this capacity, because I couldn't do another year of assistant coaching. It just took up too much time during the week. So I figured that would be a really good way to get the program going, and I could do it on, the schedule fit me as well. And my son was a freshman, so I was pretty into helping the program out, and it just kind of seemed to make a lot of sense. And when we talked about it, Israel agreed, and thank God, because he supported me, for all those years, or supported us really, and it was through his support that the program is where it is today.
I was looking for, and I knew the need for a feeder program of some sort. I mean, we needed it. It's just so obvious that to compete, you can't walk in every year with these young guys. You go through the process, the most basics of wrestling, just to be able to then branch out and grow. But I live, by the University of Memphis, and it just was not practical for me with the time constraints of being at school as long as I was, to then also be staying involved with that. And so when he approached me, I thought it was a fantastic idea. First of all, that I found somebody that wanted to do that, and second of all, that he'd been with us now for a year. So we were familiar with each other. I knew what he had to offer. He knew what I looked for and what I was needing to go forward for us to be successful. So that really worked out. And he also saw experience of being in the high school, you know, like being trying to work in high school. In that first year, I know it had been so frustrating how many hoops you had to do just to like, something going. You can't because administration says you can't do this or whatever.
Yeah.
And I know it can be frustrating, but having been there, actually there during that year, you saw, oh, this is the dynamic of how high schools work in the first place. So
Right.
it was really a great thing to have been working together for that year to then branch out and develop that club program.
Okay. And that was
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
2009 was the first year for the club?
2009 was the first year for club. Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
Yep.
What year did that mat room, we call it a mat closet, come to be? Is that where you guys started?
Yeah, that's where the high school team wrestled. That was their wrestling room.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The cub room,
Yeah.
you mean?
Yeah, we call it little kids room, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that was it. The whole team was in that blue room, and it was crowded sometimes. But you know,
30 kids.
Yeah. That was crazy.
You had to get creative. I would put little squares on the mat. I would tape down with that athletic tape. I divided it up into, I guess, let's see, we had 6 practice circles. I must have divided it up into 10 practice rectangles to try to make it fit, or 9 I can't remember exactly, but yeah, they learned how to wrestle in the middle of the mat because of it. That's for sure. You know, there was no using every inch of the mat. You wrestled in the middle, and they drugged their people in the middle of the mat by their ankles sometimes, which we loved. So, but that was the space we were given. Yeah. Since I'd been at Cordova, and the principal at Cordova came over to Arlington and brought me with him, and he had seen what we did at Cordova, having to move the mats around all the time. So, you know, they made sure that we had a room, not recognizing the need for the size of the room. And when I first walked into that room, they'd already put up a chalkboard because they were planning on using it like a PE classroom originally. And he made them go back and in the actual plans, the blueprints, change it so that they couldn't be repurposed. It was officially a wrestling room. So yeah, we just made it work best we could.
Yeah. How long did it take you to move out into the PE gym? Was that year 2, year 3? I might be breaking up a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't remember when did you all move out to the PE gym? It couldn't have been. No, when I went there, when I was there in 2009, for the most part, we were still wrestling out of the blue room.
Yeah.
It was sometime after that they started using the PE gym.
See, you started the club program in 2009 was your first year. How many kids you guys have that first year?
The first year we registered 35, and we had 26 kids actually start the season, which I thought was fantastic because I was just hoping we'd have more than 15.
Right.
So we way overshot our goal, and I think we ended the season with 21. And then the following year we had about half of them returning, and that stayed true for us for a couple of years.
I think that second year is when I came on board and talked you into bringing the little kids.
Yeah. Which I was hesitant because I didn't have the bandwidth to deal with the little guys, and since I was going into that first year, I didn't want to bite off more than I could chew. So I didn't want to be hurting cats, and I thought really 26 kids was about as much as I could handle. So and I figured that along the way, as I recruited more parents and assistant coaches to help out the team, that we'd be able to offer more for the kids. And that following year, you and Matt and Brian,
Don and Doug, I think, right?
Yeah, you guys were like a gift from wrestling heaven. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole club was a gift because it really, I mean, your breadth of knowledge was definitely, you were such a student of the sport that I can imagine coaching just the little bitty kids would have been just beyond frustrating at that time. But yeah, the whole thing, it really shot in this influx of this blood of, hey, look, this is a bigger thing than just the group at the high school, the different group at the high school that smells up the hallway. It's like this actually grows into a bigger thing.
Yeah.
It can have community support. And I think that was a big thing too, to see so many little kids shows community support.
That team just 2 years ago was the largest part of our team for a while there. We had 30 little kids just 2 years ago. That's within, like, what's that, 10 years? Within 10 years, the size of the little kids was as big as the program a couple of years ago. So it's great to see that it keeps growing.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
was
More kids try it.
it was very encouraging. It was very heartening. Numbers go back up over 50 into the 60s and 70s because we grew to the point where we had about 70. Our third year we registered 73 kids,
Yeah.
and we couldn't put them all in that blue room.
Right.
By then we were actually using, I think, the PE gym by that third year. So that would have been around 2011, 2012, and so. But we couldn't keep them. We couldn't grow any more than that. At that point, I thought, with the facilities, if we had the right facilities and I grew the staff, we could accommodate 80 kids. At that point, I thought that was a realistic goal. But I saw that we were probably, with the facilities we had, we were probably limited to right around our sweet spot was around somewhere around 50. And so now to have those numbers go back up and we have more we have a lot more mats. It's great to see the club healthy and in the. How many did we have last year, Chris?
We were down a little bit, about 65, 70, somewhere around there.
So we were down to 65.
We were
That's
down
great.
a little bit, yeah. The year before that was our largest. We had close to 80 the previous year.
Yeah. See, that's huge. At that point, it becomes more of, geez, can we support it with the coaching staff, right? I mean, that's probably the biggest problem at that point, isn't it? Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. We have 14 coaches, either practice assistants or full-time assistants. Recruiting the right people is critical. Getting people in the door. Coach Cordero keeps going in and out. Bringing people up to speed and developing. If you've coached other sports before, we'll invest in helping you guys along. Having Matt still being around, you and Don coming out helping Coach.
You missed the beginning of that question.
There you are. You got some audio.
I'm obviously in the car, so I'm getting spotty here and there. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So what were some of the challenges, Coach Cordero, with convincing
for a good place to pull over?
What were some of the first challenges you guys ran into for the club and coming in and out of the building?
Well, for the club, coming in and out of the building. that actually was the challenge.
Just get in and out.
Well, the problem was that, and Israel, I mean, you can jump in and give me your perspective on this, but the problem was that we weren't integrated into the school system. We weren't the school activity because we were an independent, USA Wrestling chartered club. So there was insurance issues, and I understand that Dr. Cousins was kind of skittish about having us there. And I don't know how much support, I really, to this day, I don't know really how much support Israel got from the athletic director. So I always felt that we were had a very tenuous position at the school. And so we needed to, I always felt that the club, our position was that we wanted to prove that we were an asset in any chance that we had, that we could be an asset to the school, and that we always needed to mind our P's and Q's when we were in the school. So.
And that was, I mean, that really was a big challenge. I mean, it was.
Yeah, I think he fell off again.
I think so. Yeah.
Challenge in the first place because of the misunderstanding of wrestling.
You're going in and out, Coach.
I hadn't seen this kind of thing before. You know, this basketball and football school, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They understood that. They knew baseball for sure. All of a sudden, you guys, how about now?
That's better.
That sounds great. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, but that was the big challenge, was the getting them to understand what the asset was. And yes, their misunderstanding of it, and all they saw was there were a bunch of little kids running around. And you've heard it before, Chris. I know you heard it a couple of times, you know, especially during basketball games, and trying to manage that space and getting the wrestlers to respect the spacing, and then getting them to the administration and everybody else to understand, look, they're not the first go-to that's what's happening wrong. You know, it could be something else. So that was a challenge, but you know, we got through that. It really worked because we kept the lines of communication open with the administration to make sure they understood this was happening. We saw they needed us to inform them well beforehand of more things, and we went with it from there.
Yeah, and I think overall, I mean, there were really to my knowledge, there were really no major incidences that I don't know, maybe Coach, can you tell me, was there ever a time where you had to go to the mat for us that we didn't know about, were we ever in any danger of getting
Yeah, but it was more of not that anything was done wrong as much as this was, along with everything else in such a young school and all the dynamics of it, this was just another thing that they had to be aware of, and it wasn't even part of the high school. It was an extension of the high school. So that was a little rough, but because they were dealing with the same thing out on in the stadium with the AYS football and track and stuff. They're having the same issues. It was just, this is an extension of the high school, and so they were responsible in different ways, but they wanted nothing. You know, it was still so new for them.
Right.
Yeah.
So you went from that first season to let's host a camp, let's host a tournament, to hosting a top 100. I've got my top 100 2013 shirt on. How did you make those jumps?
Well, I think we did that basically as a group. My philosophy, or my thinking, was that I really wanted to stabilize the structure of the club and make sure that the kids were getting a good quality experience before I really wanted to think about expanding the club and adding more services, or just, you know, doing more activities like hosting events and things like that. I really wanted to take my time and not bite off more than I could chew. And the last thing I wanted to do was do a tournament without really thinking it through, without planning it out, without knowing what I was doing, and having it turn out like many of those disastrous tournaments that we used to have, that we went to, that would last 11 hours. You know, people would be there for all day. I mean, we actually lost. Some parents didn't want their kids to wrestle because the tournaments were too long, and it was just crazy. They weren't very well run. And I didn't want to get into that because I didn't have an experienced staff. And I mean, even though all my experience was basically teaching and coaching, it wasn't in running tournaments. So I was not going to rush into that until I was sure that I had the people and kind of the knowledge to make that happen. So I think we had our first challenge. The Bobcat Challenge was that our third or fourth year? What was that? I don't remember.
The top 100?
Uh,
No, the Bobcat
Oh.
Challenge.
Oh,
The first tournament we hosted.
probably the
So-
club's third year.
Yeah, I think it was our third
yeah,
year.
it was it was still, I mean, it was still relatively early in the process. Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Yeah, and I
convinced
don't
you
even
to help out with
remember.
the camps. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if we had the camp first or the tournament first, or if we had them both in the same year, just one following the other. But the camp was, I mean, that was the idea for that was that mostly as it was primarily as a fundraiser, but I also saw it as a way to recruit and boost the numbers for the fall,
Right.
because we wanted to basically increase awareness of the sport and of the program. And I thought this is probably a really great way to do it. And there were no little kids camps for wrestling around at that time to compete with us, right? So there was the West Tennessee Takedown Club had their camp, and then there's Southern Champions, but there was nothing around for little kids. So I thought this is a niche that we can do. And running a camp is not like running a tournament. I mean, you can pretty much figure it out pretty easily. So yeah, that was kind of the thinking there.
And you convinced Coach Cordero to host as well. I still remember one year, it might have been the second or third year we had camp, and it was one day I was by myself with the beginners. Coach Cordero was in the wrestling room with the advanced guys. I had Mike Connor when he was probably 4 years old. He kept running into the wrestling room, turning off the light on Coach Cordero. That was all he remembered was having a blast at camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the camps are supposed to be fun, and I was lucky enough that I'd been a part of different camps. I'd worked with Southern Champions before, and so I learned what a camp was supposed to be, which is fun. And yeah, you're going to be learning some stuff, but there's going to be a lot of the dynamic that you still got these kids, especially the little ones. So you know, it can be a little more laid back than my normal way of doing things. So yeah, we had fun with it. We just went with it.
Yeah, and I think that was, in terms of the goals, what we wanted to do, we just wanted to introduce kids we wanted to give them some physical activity, and we wanted to just kind of introduce them to kind of the essence of wrestling, but without getting into really any significant teaching of what was going on, at least for the new kids. So, and I think
the most fun thing, I think the most fun thing they had was the
old course,
obstacle course. I mean, we got fun.
Yeah.
We had fun trying to come up with different things.
Yeah, the old course was definitely the most fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought that was perfect. I mean, that's perfect. That was like right in with what we were trying to do. It was fitness related. It was it was a diversion, but it all kind of was right in line with the idea behind the camp. So yeah, that was great. That was a great idea.
So after a few years, you add the camp, you add the tournament. Then we started competing AAU. We just kept adding on. So as those wrestlers developed, I'm curious, Coach Cordero, how did your room change once you started getting those middle schoolers that had some experience?
Well, it definitely helped beyond belief, but it was getting that influx of I can actually start without the most basic things, and it helped those kids that we're brand spanking new to the sport. There were fewer of them in the room, so their learning curve just shot through the roof. Since we had so many more experienced guys, we ended up getting a freshman region champ out of Bryce Dodson like during that time, and it just really got a snowball effect going, and it felt like it was like we were waiting. It was like I kept waiting. It's like, come on, where's that class? Where's that class coming? But it did. It really kicked in, and it was kind of at a time where we needed that boost. We had gone through some ups and downs in the high school program, and we needed a good influx on the up. So the timing was perfect for it.
Yeah, we had Bryce was the first region champ, and then the year after that, Caleb Morgan was the second freshman region champ, and that's kind of when I thought that, okay, now we're where we're supposed to be. This is where we're supposed to be. This has been a success, because I knew after that it was just going to get better from there on out, and it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither
one of us was really around after that to really see it though, because I went to Florida.
Yeah.
And then you ended up going you ended up leaving
Central
as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that we built such a foundation, and what you guys did with that program built such a strong community foundation that and where it's gone now, it's amazing. And I'm always real proud of it because I get to say, look at this. I used to coach there. I was like, oh yeah, they're really good. It's like, yeah, no, I don't get any of that credit. They did all that, but I was there at the beginning. I was helping. I was part of that. So I like to, I definitely own that. That's in my blood. That was part of it. That they're part of what of me.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that the club has actually had a more far-reaching effect than possibly than I really envisioned initially, because I think that one of the things that it's done because of the success of the club since that time, in large part, mostly due to under the leadership of Chris and Matt and a few others, it became such a foundation for the high school program, and then the high school program took off, and it's just been dominating the region, that these other programs have now really had to step up their game and to be able to compete. So I think it's the rising tide raises all boats kind of principle. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's finally now getting through to the rest of the region where, these last couple of years, we've had multiple state placers from different teams this past season as well. So, and I think that's going to continue going forward, which is, it's going to be challenging for the high school, because you're going to have, I think Colleyville's kind of on the upswing, and I think Houston will still be tough every year, and hopefully Bartlett will as well. But it's going to get tougher for everybody, and it's going to be better for the region. It's going to be interesting the next few years, how that all shapes up. But what you have now is you have multiple the clubs that are competing at the youth level are competing all the way through the AAU seasons, and some beyond. Now, I think we're still kind of leading, us and West Tennessee Takedown Club are still kind of leading the group in that regard, because I know Chris has had some great programs now going through the summer months, which I think it's really exciting to me where this is going. But the idea that would have year-round wrestling at some point, when we first started, I was like, wow, that's kind of a
that's been your baby forever.
Yeah. But now it's actually, now I'm actually seeing it happen, through Chris and to some extent Matt's efforts and others as well. So again, it's where the club has gone is fantastic. I just, the future looks great.
So yeah, we got a lot of strong kids, but
Yeah.
like you said, you guys kind of birthed it, built the foundation, handed it off for anybody who's who's going to come in and have success. So it still takes a lot of work.
Yeah, and that was important too. That was an important, and actually, I'm glad you touched on that, because that was one of the things that I knew I wasn't going to be doing this for like 12 years or whatever, and I wanted to make it so that the club would be able to operate successfully without me to guide it as its back then its founder. And you see these clubs fail when coaches leave. We saw it all the time at that point.
Yeah.
You see it in high school. Some of the programs
Yeah.
folded, and so in order to guard against that, that's kind of why we formed the 501c 3C organization, and I tried to give as much leadership to the parents and as I could, so that we would have, and I don't know if, I'm sure that played a role in it, but I really do think that it was just that core group of guys that we got our second year, that Chris, Brian, and Matt really made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And I think more than anything, as far as the long-term success of the club, I think it's more attributable to Matt and Chris and Brian's efforts before he left as well. So kudos to you, Chris Nettleton.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you guys carried it on and took it completely in a better way. And the dream that Ivan had, because Ivan he wanted nothing but mat rats. That's the way he always expressed it. It's like, I want mat rats here that just have to breathe this air all the time.
We got a couple of those. So that Coach Cordero, so you moved on to another school, and again you have some very aggressive, strong wrestlers. I know that anytime we're going to compete, they're in for a battle, full 6-minute battle. How do you rebuild a program as quickly as you did? So those kids are tough.
I don't know if it's been built yet, but I will say that the difference between the two matches that we had this year at Arlington were night and day. The first one, that had to have been the worst beating I have ever had as a coach. And then the electricity and the excitement in that last match, and the fact that the boys actually competed aggressively and were not laying down. I love the growth just that we saw in that year. And it's got, I don't know, basically the guys who become interested in it, one way or the other, I'm able to get some of those guys. They bring in their friends. They all have the same kind of mindset. You get somebody there that may not have the same kind of mindset as I do, and that they buy into, and they usually don't last. They leave. They quit. They run off. And so we're left with a group of people that have that same vision of, look, it is hard work, and we do want to do this. And I don't know. I guess I find I draw folks that have the like mindset because we have similar interests, and they buy into it, and that's key. And then we're buying into, like, okay, we need to get more people next year, but I only want people like us because we want to be able to hang out with them and work with them. So I guess just there's people out there that are looking for something like this to express themselves, to physically grow, and that they just weren't able to find elsewhere.
Gotcha. So what would you say? What would you say is the keys to success for getting up and running and keeping that longevity?
You gotta love it. I mean, that's what I found out. You know, when I stepped away for a couple of years, I still was running tournaments. I ended up finding a new role for myself, and so I became the guy that, you running a tournament, call me up, I'll run it for you. I'll get on the computer, learn the system real well, so that I could do any kind of tournament. And then it hit me that it was missing. I needed that, and so I offered to help Coach Nelson Shirley at Kingsbury, and I just wanted to dip my toe in it just a couple days a week. And in that, he had a great group of guys that had that same kind of mentality that I was talking about, and they embraced me, and I just really realized I needed this in my life. And so, you know, after a couple of years at Kingsbury, I'll try to dip my toe in and see if we could start an actual team, to see if I was ready for that full throttle with a new philosophy, a little new growth that the time away gave me to address. So longevity on it is obviously going to have to come with some kind of breaks to allow for you to maybe grow, or if you don't take the breaks, at least give yourself some way to be introspective, like, okay, it's time to adjust and grow, because it can't stay the same. That's not dynamic, and you can't expect success always doing it the exact same way. It develops too much. You got to be able to apply and adjust.
Great. What would you say, Coach Pagan, would be your keys to success and longevity for a team?
Well, I think you have to have institutional support. So I think you have to have strong school backing. You have to have, you know, everything from, of course, having the coach with the desire and the fire in the belly to really do something like this, to take over, to build the program. I think you definitely have to have, of course, a feeder system, and you can't really do that. And we saw that we struggled with that during those first years. Is you have to have institutional support. You have to have the school behind it. You have to have, obviously, it helps if you have resources, but so long as you have people willing to help you on the inside, I think that's probably the best predictor for how long that program is going to go and how strong it'll be. And you can see that in the schools that are out there now in Shelby County. There were schools that are well funded, and that they're building facilities for their programs, and they've got their athletic director is fully behind wrestling. They understand wrestling, and they're advocates. And you can see where that doesn't happen, and what happens with the programs that don't. So I really do believe that having good institutional support, and of course having the staff on board, having a good young coach with highly motivated to get not just the kids going, but to build the program the right way. So I think that would be my best indicator of long-term success.
And we're all, certainly grateful for both of you guys for everything that you've done for, getting the high school started and then getting the club started. It's certainly laid a great foundation. We got we surrounded ourselves with a lot of good support. What other questions, comments would you have for Arlington Wrestling's audience?
No, I just think that for the Arlington Wrestling audience, for the youth parents and kids, you have a fantastic high school program. You should be proud of it, and you should be proud of the role that Arlington Wrestling Club plays in contributing to that whole program, and just that the future looks great, and it's all due to the current leadership and the current support. I think it might have been a blessing in disguise. Is one of the things that really helped out was the independent school systems that arose out of the the decentralization of the Memphis school system. Because now the communities like Arlington, Colleyville, Germantown, Bartlett, they can basically, I know in Arlington, it helped us greatly, because then we did have this institutional acceptance by the entire school system. And the school board knows the youth program, and they've completely taken the program, under its wing. So, and I think that's helped. I think that's been huge. So, yeah, just be proud of the program you have. No, it's in great stewardship, and that the future looks really great.
I would add that just recognize what the sport has done for your child. I mean, it's one of the best character building aspects. It teaches how to deal with adversity and overcoming challenges, and that it is hard, and hard work is what makes it fun, and the end result is what you're the most proud of, and it takes time to develop and not be looking for that quick fix and quick win or whatever. It's more about the development that you're going to get out of your child when they're involved in wrestling throughout the whole program, so throughout the whole process of the youth program, and then going to the high school level, and the type of person that it helps to build, that they can overcome adversity. Because I've had kids that were in the military and figured once I got through some practices, I could handle boot camp just fine. It makes them for some mental toughness. So it's character building, and just embrace it and continue with it.
Great. I really appreciate you guys joining me. So I know it's a lot to take this extra time out of your day, but I think it's good to catch up and kind of document some of this history, so that as future generations come through, they have an understanding of where we came from. So again, we're very appreciative of everything you guys did, and how you continue to support the program. I think it's great to see.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thanks for everything you do. I'm proud of where the club is now. I'm proud of what you've done with it. I love that background.
It took me a long time to get somebody to draw a good bobcat, and now I gotta put stripes on it. It's a tiger now.
Yeah. So yeah. Well, thanks. Thank you.
Cool. Well, thank you guys.
Thanks for reaching out. It helps keep the club going to the community.
Yep. Thanks again, guys. We'll catch up soon.
Okay. Thanks. Jumping off.
See ya.
All right.